Welcome to the Olive Shoots Family Podcast, where we talk about family and parenting, homesteading, and the things God is leading us towards. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brittany. We've been married for 3 years, have one little boy, and just got our first piece of land where we plan to build and start our homestead. We are passionate about the family unit and getting back to the basics of the way God created us to live. We have big dreams and are learning what it looks like to pursue those dreams while first trusting God's leading.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
So for the past, couple of months or so, we have been in a new phase of parenting, and our son has been in a new phase of life as he has stepped into just being a toddler and all that entails. And I know that other parents that have already parented a toddler know exactly what we're talking about. And it's been one of those things that literally every day it changes. Like, when it started, I don't know, I said a couple months ago, it's probably not even that long ago. We're like, okay, we're gonna have to figure out our parenting a little bit different. This is a learning curve for us, as much as he's learning how to deal with all of his emotions and just freedom and all the things that's going on in his mind. We're learning as parents how to parent that and how to handle those situations. And it's one of those things that every single day it changes, or it gets a little bit more dramatic, or a little bit more, just the more freedom, the more he pushes the line a little further, and we're only a month into it. So I'm sure that's just going to be a continual thing, but it's something we're in the middle of right now, and we've had a lot of conversation about, and so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, I think at the very beginning of it, we were like, well, how are you supposed to discipline a toddler? Like, what are you supposed to do? Because they don't comprehend a lot of things. And so we've just had a lot of conversations about what can we do? What are we trying to accomplish when he does throw tantrums, when he does disobey us or things like that? And yeah, it's like a constantly evolving game. Like, it's kind of funny, but like this week, or maybe last week, but like very recently, he started doing this thing where mostly just with me, but when he gets mad at me, he like gives me the dirtiest side-eye glance, like the dirtiest look he can possibly muster. And it's kind of funny because it's like it's a toddler giving you a dirty look, but at the same time,
still cute because he's always cute, but
still very cute. But most of the time, it's like he gives me that dirty look, and then he throws something or hits something, and it's like, okay, that's not acceptable behavior. So what do we do about it? And sometimes it's like holding back laughter because it's a cute little look, but at the same time, it's like I don't want that for our son. Like, so what do we do to step in and help guide him and help that? So that's just like one of the things he's currently doing.
And I think that he's obviously can't understand everything we're saying. We can't understand more than half of what he's trying to say. And so we definitely will have those conversations like out loud in front of him, just right there. Like, okay, so should we ignore him in this moment or should we handle it? And I don't think he knows what we're talking about yet, but it's just even like just finding that balance of sometimes he's literally acting out just because he wants a response from us. He wants our attention. So if we give him that, then is that going to be solving the issue, or is it going to make him want to keep acting out? Mm-hmm. But then other times, like, it's not. We can't just ignore it. It wouldn't be beneficial to just ignore his action, because hitting and throwing things is never acceptable, whether he's just trying to get attention or not. So it's definitely just been like, is this one of those? And it's like trial and error. Like, well, let's just see if we ignore him, if the behavior stops, or if we need to put him in timeout, or we need to have get down on his level, try to have a conversation with him. And I think that's been something that we have definitely in the past month we have tried. And I know, like I said, as parents that have done this or have been parents for longer than us would probably say that's going to be parenting for the rest of your life. but it feels like we have tried new things and had conversations and have constantly adapted, even in just the past month of dealing with figuring out how to parent the best way.
What would you say some of Emerson's behaviors and things like that are like when he does those things, it's like, okay, yep, we're in the toddler stage. Like, what are some of those key behaviors that he does?
I mean, I'd say, like, well, it kind of just started out with throwing fits and kind of whining, and
like stomping his feet and that sort of thing.
stomping his feet.
Yelling.
But in the past week or so, it's already progressed to saying no over and over again, no, 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 and the whole, like, smacking something, like, he'll just hit the table, or he doesn't really hit me very often, but he'll hit something, or, like, throw something if it's in his hand, and then he'll just, like, sometimes, even in most recent, I think he'll sit down and want to throw his head back, but then he, like, kind of realizes that's not a good idea, thankfully.
He'll ragdoll and just go completely limp as we're trying to pick him up.
Yeah, and he won't let us set him down. And so it's just those things, but they're all in moments over, like, oh, it's time to go inside, and he's not ready to go inside, or it's time to go wash our hands or change a diaper, or no, we can't throw mommy and daddy's phone, or no, you can't read that book because it's a book that's mommy and daddy's that rip the pages in. Like, it's over just little things, but obviously we're taking something from him in the moment, or we're telling him no. Like, no, you cannot take the knives out of the dishwasher. And it's just things that he doesn't understand why we have the authority to tell him that. But at the same time, it's for his safety, or because it's something he shouldn't be doing. And then that's what leads to the immediate response of getting mad and throwing something. And I think literally in the past almost weekend, we've noticed, like, that he has, like, just anger. It's not just no, I don't want to do that. He, like, gets really mad for a split second, and it's like, that's kind of the conversation we had today when he did it, was just like, should we ignore this? Because he didn't throw anything or hit anything. He just got angry for a second. But also, I don't know. I think it's like a situation by situation of, do we ignore this or do we handle this?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the main things that we've been just processing together lately is just, why is he reacting that way? And we've kind of landed on, like, as he's moved into that toddler stage, I mean, just this year, he learned how to walk, and when you learn how to walk, like, you get more freedom than you did before. And we used to have, like, a baby gate up in our living room that we could confine him to the living room, and then he got too big for that and just wanted to explore and be around with us. And so he was given more freedom in the house, and then, as we expand his freedoms, he's learning what freedom looks like, and learning what freedom, what that brings. And so it's more play, it's more fun ways of play, it's just
it's also
new
more
experiences.
Boundaries, because when we were able to keep him in the living room, there wasn't really anything in the living room at the time that he couldn't play with. So I didn't really have to say, no, you can't do that, because I put him in a space surrounded by things he was allowed to play with, things he was allowed to do. And as he's experienced more freedom, we're not going to baby-proof and block off every single thing in our whole house that he can't touch. So it's required more, no, you can't open that drawer, you can't pull off the glass jars from the shelf. And so it's been more parenting in that way of, like, telling him no, but it's because, like you said, more freedom also, I think, leads to more boundaries in some ways, at least in his mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely more. Like, a good example of this is when Emerson was strong enough and tall enough that he was able to pull himself up onto the couch. So he can get up on our couch all by himself now, which is fantastic when we're sitting on the couch and we want him to come sit by us. But it's not so great when we are just in the living room or in the kitchen and he climbs on the couch and runs laps from cushion to cushion. And we don't want him jumping and running on the couch, especially by himself, where he can easily fall off and hurt himself. And so that's a boundary that we've put up for him. And so on one hand, like, we're not going to put a gate up on the sofa so to prevent that kind of behavior, to forcibly stop him from doing something. But he now has the capability to disobey us and the freedom to make that choice of getting up there on his own and not listening to the instruction of mom and dad. And so it's, from his perspective, it's like he has all these new freedoms, whether that's because of things that we allow for him or because that's of new capabilities that he has, that he's stronger, he's taller, he's smarter, he's more capable, whatever that may be. And so with those new freedoms that he is experiencing, our response in that as his parents is to teach him obedience and to teach him what obedience means.
Yeah, and to teach him, like, when it's okay to get on the couch and when it's not. When it's okay to climb up on the stool that you get to help mommy in the kitchen with, and when it's not. And I think that is, like, when we have those conversations with each other, me and Nathan, it's like, well, he doesn't really, like, sometimes we let him and sometimes we don't. So obviously he's not going to understand why on the times we let him get on the couch and on the times we don't right off the bat. And he's not going to understand it for a little while because all that's still developing. So it's like, well, they let me get on it earlier. Why can I not get on it now? And so that's just that line of, like, obviously we're not going to just come down hard on him because he didn't obey us the first time, because he's learning what obedience is, and he's also learning how to determine why we're letting him do something sometimes and why we're letting him not do it other times. And, like, that's not always the case. Sometimes there are clear things of, like, you are never allowed to open this drawer. I never let you open it. Every time you open the medicine drawer, I'm going to tell you no. So, like, something like that, it's a clear, yeah, we're going to go to timeout or we're going to have a conversation about it, because it's never a yes. You shouldn't be confused. It's going to be no for now until probably ever, you know, like, he's not going to be allowed to open the medicine door. And so it's just that, but he's still learning that. And so recognizing those things that we are sometimes letting him do and sometimes not, it's really easy to get frustrated. Like, why are you running on the couch? We never let you run on the couch. But then step back and remember, well, the other night when Daddy was on one end of the couch and I was on the other end of the couch, we did let him run back and forth between us. So, and that was okay because we were there to help him, but he doesn't understand that.
But I think that obedience even goes further than that, I think that's more teaching him, like, the why of why we allow him to do things. And that's important too, and we're doing that. But I think the obedience aspect of it is no matter what the why is of why we're telling you to do something, you do it because we're your parents, and that's what obedience is. Yeah,
especially after we say it. Like, when he climbs on the couch and then we say, no, get down, that's when the fit happens. And that's when he should be learning to listen to us.
And so I think one of the perspectives that we've been just reminding each other of is that he doesn't comprehend obedience. He doesn't comprehend what we're trying to teach him and lead him in. And as he has been experiencing this newfound freedom, he also has to understand that his newfound freedom is in the context of mom and dad are still my leader. Mom and dad are still my teachers. And that's kind of what he's trying to grasp as a toddler. And so it's just been a reminder for us of, like, hey, just remember he's learning this. And so that helps us to kind of step back and give him grace and give him the instruction that he needs. And it's it makes us slower to anger, I think, or slower to a reaction. It's just we're more patient in our teaching and instruction rather than just defaulting to a reaction in the moment.
Yeah, and I think because I'm stay home with him most of the time and most of the day, and so when Nathan will come home from work, I'm like, this is what I've been dealing with. I don't know, like, I don't understand why he's doing it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, sometimes and just kind of breaking down the day and explaining all of it. And something you told me the other day that, like, is an obvious thing, but something I hadn't really just sat down and processed was he's figuring out, he's for the first time in his life kind of has choices. He has the choice to do something he's not supposed to do, but he also has the choice of just little, like when we go play outside or even when we're inside, of like what toys he wants to play with. He's making that choice. And he hasn't been making choices for most of his life. Like that whole first year, for the most part, he's eating the milk that I'm giving him. He's going on a walk when we go on a walk. I put him in the stroller. Like, he doesn't have the freedom to choose if he wants to walk or wants to ride in a stroller or any of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, like you said, after he learns how to walk and just gets all these new freedoms, that comes with the ability to make choices in how he wants to spend his time to some extent. And then deciding whether to obey or not, and whether to listen or not, and whether to throw a fit. Like, those are all choices, but this is the first time in his life that his brain is like making that and having to process that. And that was something I hadn't really thought about, of like, okay, well, I struggle to make choices and I've been making choices for 25 plus years. So obviously, I mean, like, when you say, where do you want to eat? That's the typical girl response of not being able to make a choice. But it just kind of put in perspective of, well, yeah, that makes sense. He's just now learning how to make a choice. Obviously, he's going to fail at it 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, he's not going to be able to comprehend or process it properly because it's a new thing.
Well, I also think that just goes back to our sinful heart and our sinful nature, that just recognizing as our son is making choices for the first time in his life, that how choices for all of us, there's a sinful pull in our choices, and I think that's one of the things that we're kind of experiencing with him now is it's not just a choice to throw a tantrum. It's not just a matter of, do I want to listen to mom or dad, or do I want to throw a tantrum? Those choices are made.
He definitely doesn't think that long about it.
They're made in a context, and that context is there's a sinful pulling at my heart right now. And I think one of the things that we've noticed with our son is there's just like this switch in him where an anger is triggered, and he just his face scowls, and he just gets angry, and that's when the behavior of tantrum or throw something or stomp my feet or scream or no, like the origin of that is anger in his heart. And I think that has helped me in moments where, I don't know, it frustrates me so much when he just goes limp noodle when I'm trying to carry him in, or
stand him up to take off his pants or wipe him off or like something.
Today we were outside and it had rained this morning, and so like the ground is muddy and wet, and I didn't want him to sit in the mud, sit in the dirt, and he didn't want to go inside, and so he just went limp and dragged himself across the dirty the mud outside. And I get inside, and I think you said something like, what in the world? What happened? Why'd you let him? And I was like, I didn't. He just went limp on me. And and so it frustrates me so much. But I think in that moment, when I can recognize that anger, it's not just a decision, it's not just a behavior that my son is doing, but he is struggling with anger. And so if I respond to his struggle with anger with an angry response because I'm reacting in a negative way, or because I'm frustrated at him or anything like that, then I I'm just building upon the sinful struggle that he's already dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, if I respond in grace, in a calm manner and in a calm tone, and tell him that I love him, and say, son, why are you getting so angry? Why is this the heart posture that you're having? And obviously, like, communicating with the toddler, like,
he doesn't answer those questions.
He doesn't stand, oh, what is my heart posture? What am I doing? He doesn't get that. But he definitely hears my tone, and he hears that, oh, dad is being really calm with me right now when I'm trying to incite him, when I'm trying to escalate. He's de-escalating, and he's calming me down. And so it's just a huge reminder to me, and sometimes a convicting reminder when I don't do it, that just the way I respond to his behavior should be more about what's the core sinful issue that's going on at play here, and then how do I respond to that core sinful issue rather than just the behavior that's going on.
Yeah. And I think that, we've been talking about the way he's been acting like this is how he acts all day long, and it's not. It's the up and down. It's the, I'm really happy, and I'm like, typical toddler. I'm being great, and then all of a sudden I snap. And then next thing you know, I'm all happy again, and I'm being silly, and I'm being cute. And it's those things. It's like, even when we get frustrated, we forget the next second. And I think that's been one of those reminders of just like, God, like, it's been another one of those, this is how God sees us in two different ways here. Mm-hmm. One, in if we're being angry or living in sin, and we turn around and we're like, in some sense throwing a tantrum at God, like, why did this happen to me? Why did you tell me no? Why can I not do this? And we ask those questions sometimes, and God's not going to just turn around in anger and yell back at us or say, because I said so, like, or it's just not what's good for you. Like, he's not just going to yell. Like, we don't see that in the Bible. We see just the calm. And so when I see Nathan behaving that way to Emerson, when not in the yelling way, in the calm way, when Emerson's throwing a fit, and I'm over here like, it impresses me that he's staying calm in that moment when Emerson is not doing anything to make us want to parent him in a calm way. And I think that's just an automatic of like, that's what God is to us. So obviously that's how we should handle it with our kids. And then, like I said, how he's just angry one moment and then happy the next moment, and we forget. And like, I'm not sitting there writing down, tally marks, he threw a fit 10 times today. Like, I don't remember how many times he threw a fit at the end of the day. I don't get angry at him and just mad at him and stay mad at him because he turns around the next moment and he's giving me a hug, or even if we have a rough day for a good portion of the day, that one point where we sit down and we're reading a book, or we're sitting on the floor playing a game together, and he's happy for that 10 seconds, 30 seconds. It's usually more than that, but it doesn't take any time for us to immediately just be like, not that we ever don't love him when he's mad, but it's just that like it's all worth it. Like, we don't stay mad in any sense. We don't have this like skewed view of our son just because he's throwing fits. We love him the same in the middle of that as we do when we're having a good moment with him, and those good moments don't come if we just were to react out of anger back to him. Like, he's not going to view us as loving parents if we're not treating him like we love him whenever he's throwing a fit. Just like if God were to turn around and fuss at us when we're throwing one of those tantrums, it's not going to make us see God as a loving God and that he cares about us. It would be, why, like, we wouldn't want to go to him the next time we're angry, kind of thing. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I also think, one of the things I've noticed just this last weekend has been, whenever I am slow to anger, and whenever I do react in a good way to that sinful heart nature that our son is doing, like, whenever I react well, he is quicker to respond in love to me. And just this last weekend, like, I've noticed, like, when when I spend that time with him and when I'm patient with him through those tantrums, then he more quickly wants to come up and hug me, and he more quickly wants to play with me, and so like, yeah, those moments, it makes it so worth it. Like when you respond well, makes it so worth it. But also just, I think at the heart of that is just the relationship is just so incredibly powerful, and that aspect of the love that you have for your child and the love that they have for you.
I think the way we respond builds that relationship stronger, or it can kind of crush it a little bit. And I think we've seen that. And we've talked about, like, because we've been processing this, so we've been saying ways that we've been improving on it possibly recently. But I think that something we've noticed is just as much as Emerson is learning how to process and throwing all these fits and then being happy and silly and going through this roller coaster of emotions in 1 minute over and over again, we are learning how to parent that. And so we're failing just like he's failing, and then we're learning ways to do it better just like he's learning. And so we're kind of on this journey together. It's not just him throwing tantrums and he's got to figure out how to have a better life. It's we're figuring out how to work together in some way. Not work together in the sense of like he's equally in charge or anything like that, but working together and like what you said of just maintaining that relationship, and just easily like with the amount of conversations we've had and just processing his actions and his motives. I think it's helped us to handle it in a way that we have already seen, okay, well, this worked better than that. And like we said, it's not just because that worked this weekend for us and we've noticed that change doesn't mean that will be the way we are able to handle it for a year. It might change 2 weeks from now. But just already recognizing, like you said, and I recognized it happening too, of just when we're calmer, it calms him down faster and it has more of an effect than if we just, and I think timeout still will have a place, but whenever he's in a full outfit and we just go hold him in our lap and timeout, he usually doesn't calm down. He's still angry at the end of it. We didn't have any type of a conversation, and I think that whenever we get down on his level and calmly talk to him, and we don't get and I think when I get angry, it's not that I don't ever yell at him. I've never like just thrown anything back. Obviously, I don't behave the way he behaves, but I think he can tell like I'm stressed, I'm uptight about it, instead of when I just remain that calm voice. And it's a lot in the tone, like you said.
I like that image, what you said of like we're learning how to partner with each other, and not in the same sense of like you and I have done that and will do that throughout our marriage, of like we are in constant partnership of, and I wish that was a like one time we're partners now and we've got it and we just are in sync for the rest of our lives.
Me and you.
Yeah. I kind of don't though, because that means we're growing and we're changing. So but yeah, in our marriage, like we can definitely see our partnership ebbs and flows, and we have to navigate the changes in our lives and the changes in our time and our goals and our passions, and that's a lifetime that we're committing to together. Like that partnership we have together is a lifetime commitment of discovering and growing together. And it's different with our children, but I'm not saying that the partnership we have with Emerson is the same as the partnership as you and I, but I think what we are trying to create is a family unit, not just a dictatorship or just, you're our child, do what we say, or this is the direction mommy and daddy are taking our family, but an inclusion of Emerson into what we want as a family. And one day he will have greater say in that. We want him to be included in the direction and the guidance of where our family's going to go. But for now, it's as simple as like, how can we as your parents better lead you? And he doesn't communicate that with words right now, but he communicates that in the way that he responds to us. Mm-hmm. And when we pay attention to that, we're essentially saying to him, you matter as a part of this family unit. And we're not just going to do whatever we want as your mom and dad and whatever we think is best, but we're also going to listen to you and to listen to what you want for this family and feed off of that as well. And again, he doesn't comprehend that, but I think he does comprehend the heart of it, which is mom and dad care and love about me. And that's kind of what he's mainly grasping right now. And just like in our marriage, where sometimes we aren't going to be the best partners, right? Sometimes we're going to be trying to navigate, whether it's a new season or sometimes it's just a stressful season of our life or a stressful thing that's going on in our lives. And I talk too much and don't listen near enough, or I get frustrated and I get angry, or I don't lead the best way I possibly can, or, whatever that might look like. Sometimes we just get in these places of recognizing I'm not being the best partner I can be to you right now. And so we need to make adjustments. And in our parenting, I think that's also important to realize that we're not going to get it right all the time, that there are going to be seasons of growth and seasons of learning and figuring out how do we be the best family unit. And for us, how do we be the best parents we possibly can be?
Yeah. So how do we, as we're processing our son's changes and behavioral changes and what works best and what doesn't, how do we at the same time process how we handled it and what worked better and what didn't, and giving ourselves that grace to make mistakes and also the room to try to be improving, and not just like okay with handling it poorly, and also not jumping to the conclusion that it's all Emerson's fault. Like, I did the best thing possible and he still doesn't get it and still hasn't responded, but it's not my fault, it's all his fault. Yeah. Like, that's not a proper posture either. Because if he's not getting it, then there's something we could probably do to help him get it better. And that's parenting the heart, like you said, of like, if he's doing the same action over and over and over for months and months or years at a time, like, something's wrong. He shouldn't be reacting in the exact same way 10 times a day for a year. Like, I mean, he's not going to just get it, obviously. He's going to throw fits, and we're going to see those behaviors come back up, because when we feel convicted about, I think for me a lot, the trap that I fall in a lot is just being anxious or worrying about whatever it is going on in my life. And that's something that I know biblically, like, I'm not supposed to be worrying about this, and that's something Nathan has to remind me of constantly, but it doesn't mean I never fall back into that trap. There will be periods where I remember, like, to speak that truth over my life and to not fall into that, but it's not like, well, God told me not to worry and Nathan reminded me not to worry, so I'm never going to worry again. So we can't have that same expectation for our kids. Obviously they're going to fall back into it, but it should be a progression of making the right choice, not continuing to always make the wrong choice. So it's partnership, like what you said. So what are we doing to seek that improvement and to not just get bogged down by our mistakes or just feeling the shame that we're failing because our kid's not responding right?
Yeah. Well, I think that first thing to recognize is, like, we aren't perfect people. And if we respond to our children like we are perfect, then they're the first people that are going to see right through that. And it's just going to build resentment. And over time, it's just going to, brick by brick, build this barrier between you and your child. And when they turn 18, when they become adults for themselves, it's like there's this barrier between you. And so if you view your parenting knowing that I am not perfect, and so I am going to make mistakes along the way. I think there's a few kinds of mistakes that we can make just in general. We all sin. We're sinful people. And so there will be moments where I react out of my sin. Maybe that's an angry comment. Maybe that's responding with a guilt-ridden response, or a manipulative response, to try to change the behavior of my kids because of something I say, rather than leading them and changing their heart in that matter. Or maybe it's just some other sinful thing that I do or say to our kids. And so I think that's one mistake that we can make. But I also think as parents, we're guiding and leading our families, and there will be mistakes along the way that aren't necessarily sinful, but we just recognized, hey, this is the wrong direction. We took a wrong turn. I think the example of like a road trip is really a really great example. I can turn down the wrong street, and Britt can look at me and be like, "What are you doing? I think you're lost." And I can look back at her and scream and yell and be like, "No, I'm not. I know where I'm going. I don't need directions. I don't need help." And I can respond out of anger. But I can also make that same thing, take a wrong turn, and her say, "Hey, I think we're going in the wrong direction. Maybe we need to ask for help. Maybe we need to ask for directions." And I can respond and say, "You know what? We did make the wrong turn. We are going in the wrong direction. Let's try to fix that." I still don't want to ask for directions or ask for help because I'm a man and I'm driving, but I will recognize. And so there's kind of two different kind of mistakes that we can make as parents. And so our response in those things will be different, whether it's a sinful mistake or if it's just recognizing that, hey, we made the wrong choice here and we're going to pivot. But I think for both of those things, it starts with sharing with your kids that, hey, I messed up here. I made a mistake, and I want to apologize, and I'm making amends. I'm making a point to try to turn from my mistake and correct it.
Yeah, and I think that's difficult to do, and especially with the toddler, he's not going to have any idea what we're saying anyways. So I think at this stage, that's more of a habit for us to be building than it is that it's going to actually affect him, because I think he obviously understands more than we realize he understands. And hearing the words, "I'm sorry, I messed up," is going to start to process with him quicker than we think. So maybe it's not just beneficial for us, but I think it is as equally beneficial for us in this time to start developing that habit of, hey, I didn't really handle this the best way the last time. You were angry, and I kind of got angry too, and I shouldn't have done that. So, like, will you forgive me, and, like, let's handle this differently. It's still not okay that you got angry, but I shouldn't have also got angry, kind of thing. Like, we're not saying, well, we messed up, and that's okay for both of us to just continue to mess up. But it's like, I shouldn't have done that also. Or I shouldn't have, like you said, tried to guilt trip you into making the right choice. I should have had a more rational conversation about it, or whatever it is. But I think, like I said, right, as a young age, especially, that's a habit that's beneficial for the parents to form. And then just thinking about, like, how, I don't know, I always have struggled with apologizing. And it's not because I don't think that I'm never wrong. I mean, it's rare, but I'm just kidding. But it's not that, like, it's not that I can't realize in my own head that I messed up or that I was wrong all the time, but it's that I think after I realize that, like, I'm just, like, going to work it out in my own head and then just move on because I'm too prideful to tell somebody else that I messed up. Or, you know, just that apology step has always been, you can ask my parents probably, would say the same thing, has always been something, and it's been something in recent years that I've obviously been working on, of, especially in marriage, you can't just never apologize. It's not going to work out very well. And I would expect to be apologized to whenever I felt like I was done wrong. So it's just one of those things of modeling that for our kids. If we're gonna expect them to apologize, and that's gonna be the standard for them, like when they make a mistake, we're gonna want them to recognize their mistake and to make amends, to make it right. Then we should be doing the same thing by setting an example in that and humbling ourselves, even as their authority, to be humble enough to admit we didn't handle it the best way.
Yeah, and then I think the last step of that is to just lead them into kind of what comes next, and to be able to say like, hey, this is what happened, and we're going to make a pivot here. And so if it's something that I did that was sinful or wrong, of freely admitting like, hey, this is something I did wrong, being quick to apologize, quick to make amends, be humble, like what you were just saying. And then to say, you know what, I want to get better at this. And so whenever I get frustrated or whenever I get angry, I'm going to try to do better at responding in patience and responding in a calm tone, and just lay out that path before them. And that kind of keeps us accountable, but it also lets them see the growth that you are working on as a parent, and lets them see like, oh, dad said he wanted to respond more kindly and more patiently to us, and over this last month he's been working towards that. And so them being able to see that progression, I think is really helpful. But you have to line that plan out for them and say, I see that I made a mistake, and this is how I want to change and grow. And also like just mistakes in general as parents, and as we're guiding and leading our children, to be able to say, hey, it wasn't a good idea that we made this decision. It wasn't a good idea that we implemented this new thing in leading you guys. And so it actually caused more chaos, and we thought it was going to cause more order. And so we're going to reverse what we decided on, and we're going to pivot, and this is the new plan that we have and going forward. And that just lets your kids see that that you don't know everything. That not only are you not perfect, but you can't see everything that's going on, and you are willing to listen to them and hear them and figure out what is the best direction, and to be able to grow from that. And so that kind of instills in your children that humble heart posture of quickly recognizing your sin, quickly recognizing your mistakes, but also it teaches them the ability to adapt and to be flexible, and to listen to the Spirit and the direction and to changes that are happening in their lives as well.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, it kind of should also be an encouragement to our kids that we're not perfect, and we're not expecting you to be perfect either. We're not saying you messed up and you should be perfect, so you need to get it right. Like we shouldn't expect. And I think sometimes we might fall into that, like we're not intentionally thinking, but like our kids should never mess up. Well, that's unrealistic. Our kids are gonna continue to mess up,
yeah.
Even after they have come to know Jesus and are not, but they're still going to have that sin pool, like just like we do as grown-ups. Like they're not gonna be perfect, and neither are we. So being like humble to them and reminding them we're not perfect, we mess up, and this is how we try to fix it when we mess up, is like that reminder to them that we're not expecting you to be perfect, but it's also not okay to handle it that way when they handle it wrong. And also it will, I think, create more of an opportunity for more conversation. If we're leading in that, then that opens up the door down the road when Emerson is able to comprehend and have a conversation, for us to say, what did you do wrong in this situation? Like, why did we have to get onto you? And he should be able to process that, and then maybe our hope would be that sometimes we could say, what can you do differently? instead of us just telling him how he should have handled it differently, if we're having those processes with him and saying how we're going to handle something differently, then over time, he should be able to say, well, I shouldn't have hit my little sister. Something I should have done differently is whatever. And so we're modeling that for him so that he can process it and come up with his own ways of handling things properly, not just be constantly being told how to handle it properly, if that makes sense. Like, we want him to be able to make the best decision and to learn how to process how to make decisions right, not just learn how to listen to what we say. Because he needs to learn how to listen to what we say, but, you know, when he's 14, it's going to be more beneficial for him to be able to process through and decide what's the best choice than to just listen to us. Because at some point, he's not going to want to listen to us, and then when he gets out of the house, he doesn't have to listen to us.
Well, we want to raise an adult. We don't want to raise an adult baby.
Yeah, and we want him to learn how to process through making mistakes and changing from that mistake on his own, so that when he is out of the house, he knows how to do that. It's not, well, I don't have to listen to mom and dad anymore, so I'm going to do whatever I want. And so I think that's something that starts, which sounds silly, but it can start even at age 1.5, where we're at, with just that simple processing and simple modeling with our 1.5-year-old can have that impact over time, and it will change into that, and it's something that hopefully grows us, like you said, as a family unit.
Yeah. But just reflecting on this whole episode, I just think about, like, that's what Jesus does in our lives. Like, he is patient with us, and he is changing our heart over time, and he is slow to anger, quick to mercy, quick to grace, and his steadfast love for us is just abundant in our lives. And that's the ultimate goal, is to parent the way that Jesus loves us. And so I hope that this episode has been helpful for you, maybe in practical parenting of a toddler, maybe in recognizing that it's okay to give yourself grace as parents, to be quick to apologize and make amends, and to lead your children, but to recognize that, hey, I'm not perfect and I don't have it figured out. And I hope that if those things have been helpful to you, that's great. But even greater than that, I hope that these conversations have helped you to realize that Jesus loves you so much, and that Jesus is patient with you, and that he is leading you and he is drawing you closer to him, that our Heavenly Father loves you as a little boy or a little girl, and he wants to hold you close. He wants to hug you tight, and he wants to see your heart grow and change in the same way that we hope our children's heart grow and change. And we can help them do that in the same way that God is helping you to do that too. So hope this has been helpful for you guys. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.